My parents gave away my expensive mutt to save money. They didn't realize she was a $25,000 service dog, or that I'd been quietly paying all their bills for years. The silence hit me the moment I opened my apartment door. Not the comfortable quiet of evenings settling in, but the hollow, wrong emptiness of something vital missing. I stood frozen in the doorway, keys still dangling from my fingers, scanning the living room where Luna should have been waiting. Her bed was gone from its spot by the window. Her favorite rope toy, usually scattered across the hardwood floor, was missing. Her food and water bowls, normally positioned precisely by the kitchen counter, gone. Even the scratches on the wood where she played tug-o-fear. Everything had been erased, as if Shed never existed. "Luna?" I called, though my chest was already tightening with a certainty that she wasn't there. The apartment had that vacant, deliberately empty feeling that spaces get when someone has systematically removed every trace of a presence. I walked through each room, methodically checking closets, under beds, behind furniture. Part of me hoped she was hiding, playing some impossible game. But Luna didn't hide. She was always there when I came home, tail wagging, body wiggling with excitement, ready to perform her job. My phone buzzed against my hip. A text from Mom. "Come over when you get home. Me to talk." The 20-minute drive to their house felt like hours. My hands remained steady on the steering wheel despite the cold dread settling in my stomach like lead. 15 years of crisis management training had taught me to compartmentalize emotion from action, but this felt different. This felt personal in a way professional emergencies never did. Their house looked exactly the same as always. The yellow porch light cast familiar shadows across the front steps I'd climbed thousands of times as a child. Momflower beds were still meticulously maintained, despite their constant complaints about money. Dad truck sat in the driveway, the same one I helped him buy when his old one finally died. But when Mom opened the door, her expression was flat, almost business-like, no warmth, no concern for why I might be there, just the slight impatience of someone who had a task to complete. "Where's Luna?" I asked without stepping inside. "We gave her to a shelter," she said, as casually as if she told me Shed rearranged the living room furniture. "Pets are too expensive when we could use that money for bills." The words hit me like a physical blow. I felt my chest constrict. My breathing became shallow and rapid. Luna, who slept beside my bed at every night, her presence the only thing that allowed me to sleep without nightmares. Luna, who sensed my panic attacks before I did and knew exactly how to respond. Luna had been my constant companion and lifeline for 3 years. Shelter. My voice came out steady. Professional years of training, taking over when emotion threatened to overwhelm me. "Does it matter?" Mom shrugged, stepping back to let me inside. "We needed the money you spend on her food and vet bills. Dad's medication costs are going up again, and you know how tight things have been." I nodded slowly, calculating. Bills are important. She seemed surprised by my calm response, maybe even disappointed. I could see it in her eyes. Shed expected anger, tears, and emotional outbursts she could dismiss as overreaction. "I thought you'd understand," she continued, warming to the subject now that I wasn't fighting her. "You're always so practical about money, so logical about these things." "I am," I agreed, following her into the living room where Dad sat in his recliner, remote in hand, not looking at me. Had always been the silent partner in their decisions, providing tacit approval through his presence while letting Mom handle the actual conversations. I took my usual seat on the couch, hands folded in my lap. 3 years of therapy had taught me breathing techniques, grounding exercises, ways to remain functional even when my world was falling apart. Those skills were serving me now. "Which shelter?" I asked again. "City Animal Services," Mom said, settling into her chair with the satisfied air of someone who solved a problem efficiently. "They said she was a beautiful dog. She'll find a good home with people who can actually afford to take care of her properly." The implication was clear. I couldn't afford to take care of her properly because I was wasting money on unnecessary luxuries instead of helping the family with essential needs. "How much do you think you'll save?" I asked. Mom's face brightened. She loved talking about practical matters. Budgets, savings, responsible financial decisions. "Well, that fancy dog food you buy costs, what, $60 a month? And the vet bills. Remember when she had that ear infection last spring? $200 just for antibiotics. That probably didn't even help the grooming appointments," Dad added, Finally, speaking without looking away from the television. $40 every 6 weeks. For what? To make her look pretty? And the toys? Mom continued, gaining momentum. Those expensive puzzle things you're always buying her $20.30 each for pieces of rubber and rope. I did the math in my head. While they ate their perceived savings, they were calculating maybe $1,200 a year in expenses they thought were frivolous. They had no idea what they'd just done. You're right, I said. Those expenses do add up. Mom leaned forward, pleased by my reasonable response. And honestly, it's not like she was really necessary. I mean, she's sweet enough, but she's just a pet. It's not like you need her for anything actually important. Just the pet. The words echoed in my mind as I maintained my neutral expression. Luna had been specifically trained to detect the chemical changes that preceded my PTSD episodes. Luna, whose certification papers were filed in my home office, along with her registration with State Disability Services. Luna, who cost $25,000 to train and was legally protected under federal disability law. You're absolutely right, I said, standing. She was just a pet. Mom smiled, vindicated. I knew you'd see reason once you thought about it logically. Family has to come first, and we really are struggling with Dad's medical costs. I nodded and said my goodbyes, leaving them in their living room, pleased with their practical decision and my mature response. But as I drove home to my empty apartment, I wasn't thinking about grief or loss. I was thinking about documentation. Back home, I went straight to my filing cabinet. The documentation was extensive, organized in labeled folders, because 15 years as a state benefits coordinator had taught me to document everything. Luna's certification papers from the Service Dog Academy in Colorado, her registration with State Disability Services, the federal paperwork that classified her as durable medical equipment, not a pet. Psychological evaluation that had qualified me for a service dog in the first place. Most importantly, the contracts and receipts showing exactly how much I paid for her training and the legal documentation of her status under the Americans with Disabilities Act. I never told my parents about the PTSD, never explained why I sometimes went quiet during loud conversations, why I preferred corners of restaurants, why certain sounds made me freeze momentarily. They thought Luna was an expensive indulgence, a young professional's impulse purchase of a designer dog. They had no idea she was the reason I could function normally, sleep through the night, leave my apartment without anxiety attacks. But they were about to learn. I opened my laptop and began documenting everything. Screenshots of the text message summoning me to their house, a detailed account of our conversation, including direct quotes about Luna being just a pet and not necessary, and the name of the shelter where they'd taken her. I also opened another folder on my desktop, one ID hoped never to use. For the past 2 years, ID been their financial safety net, not through any formal arrangement or family contract, but through the steady stream of emergencies they brought to me with increasing frequency. Dad's prescription medications when insurance didn't cover the full cost. Mom's car repair when the transmission finally gave out. The property tax bill they'd somehow forgotten about until the notice arrived. The utility shut-off warnings when Dad's hours got cut at the plant. I kept receipts for everything, not out of suspicion or any plan to use them against my family, but out of pure habit. 15 years of processing benefit claims and disability applications had trained me to document every transaction, every conversation, every decision. It's just how my mind works now. The total was staggering. $63,412 over 24 months. Money I given freely, without question, without keeping score because they were family, because I had a stable job with good benefits, and they were struggling because I thought it was the right thing to do. I pulled up my banking app and began making changes. The automatic transfer that covered Dad's medication copay canceled the joint savings account ID set up for their emergencies, closed the credit card I co-signed for Mom's medical expenses suspended. The direct deposit that covered their internet and phone bills terminated. Every single financial connection between us severed with a few taps on my phone screen. Then I called City Animal Services. Animal Services, this is Jennifer speaking. Hi. I'm calling about a dog that was brought in today, a golden retriever mix named Luna. Let me check our intake records. Yes, she's here. Beautiful dog. Very calm and well-trained. Are you interested in adoption? She's mine, I said. She is certified service dog, and she was taken from my home. And Lily the paw was longer this time, sir. The people who brought her and said she was their dog, They had to surrender her due to financial hardship. They lied. I have all the documentation. I'm coming to get her. It took 3 hours and a stack of paperwork to sort out Luna certification from the Service Dog Academy, her registration with State Disability Services showing me as her designated handler, the federal documentation establishing that service dogs cannot be surrendered by anyone except their trained handler, and most importantly, the psychological evaluation and medical records proving my disability and need for her services. When they finally brought Luna out from the kennels, she nearly knocked me over with excitement, her whole body wiggling, tail whipping back and forth, a high whine of joy escaping her throat. She knew. Somehow, she always knew when I needed her most. "I'm so sorry," Jennifer said, watching our reunion with obvious discomfort. "We had no idea." The people who brought her in were very convincing. They seemed genuinely concerned about the cost of caring for her. "They were concerned about costs," I replied, clipping Luna's leash to her collar. "They just weren't concerned about the consequences." The drive home felt like emerging from underwater, Luna in her usual spot in the passenger seat, her head out the window, everything returning to its proper order. But something fundamental had changed. The boundary my parents had crossed wasn't one you could uncross with apologies or explanations. My phone started ringing around 9 p.m. Mom first, her voice sharp with panic. "The bank says there's a problem with the emergency account," she said without any greeting. "Which account?" "The savings account. The one where you put money for Dad's prescriptions and emergencies." "I closed it," I said, scratching behind Luna's ears as she settled beside me on the couch. "You what? Why would you do that? You said pets were too expensive and that money should go to bills instead." "I'm following your advice." "That's completely different," Mom snapped. "That money is for actual emergencies, for necessities. Like giving away someone's service dog." Silence. Then, very carefully, "Service dog Luna is a certified service dog, Mom. She costs $25,000 to train. She's federally protected medical equipment, not a pet. And you gave her away to save $60 a month on dog food." More silence. I could hear Dad in the background, asking what was wrong, his voice muffled but increasingly agitated. "We didn't know," Mom said finally, but her voice lacked conviction. "You never asked. You just decided you knew better and took her. Well, you got her back. So what's the problem? Why are you punishing us for an honest mistake?" "The problem?" I looked at Luna, who was watching me with those intelligent brown eyes, reading my stress levels, ready to perform her trained responses if my anxiety spiked. "The problem was that for 6 hours today, I lost the one thing that allowed me to function independently. The problem was that my own parents had treated my medical equipment like disposable property. They could redistribute it, well. The problem is trust," I said. "I can't trust you anymore." Dad called an hour later, his voice strained and panicked in a way I'd never heard before. "The pharmacy says my insurance card isn't working for the COA. That's because I'm not covering the CO pay anymore." "What do you mean?" "You set up the automatic payment system. I can solve it. You wanted to save money by getting rid of Luna. I'm saving money by not covering your medical expenses. You can't just stop helping with my medication," he said, and for the first time there was real fear in his voice. "I need those pills." "Then you should have thought of that before you gave away my dog. She's just a dog. She's a $25,000 service dog, trained to assist with my disability. But you decided she was just an expensive pet you could get rid of." The line went quiet. I could hear him breathing, processing. "We made a mistake," he said finally. "Yes, you did. A very expensive mistake." My brother Trevor called the next morning, 2 years younger, perpetually broke, always calling with some crisis that required immediate financial assistance. "Mom says you were being psycho about some dog," he said without preamble. "Mom says a lot of things. Sion, man, it's just a dog. They're really struggling with bills right now. Then they should get jobs that pay better. Or maybe you could help them for once, instead of asking me for rent money every month. I don't have money like you do. I don't have money like me either anymore. I spend it all on a family that doesn't respect me." "That's dramatic as hell," Trevor said, but his voice lacked its usual confidence. "Is it? When's the last time you helped them with anything besides asking me to help them?" "I help in other ways." "Name one." Silence. "I didn't think so," I said. "But somehow it's always my responsibility to fund their lifestyle while they make decisions about my property." The real explosion came on Saturday morning. I was at the dog park with Luna, working through her training exercises, the specific routines that kept her skills sharp and reinforced our working relationship. When my phone rang, hung her voice shrill with panic. The mortgage payment bounced, she said without any pleasantries. That's unfortunate. Don't play games with me. The bank says there's insufficient funds in the account. That's because I'm not covering the mortgage anymore. You have to cover it. Well, lose the house then. You shouldn't have given away my dog. It was just a dog. I stopped walking. Luna immediately sat beside me, sensing my sudden tension, her body alert and ready to perform her trained responses. Luna, I said into the phone, my voice deadly calm, is a certified service dog trained to assist with post-traumatic stress disorder. She detects the onset of panic attacks and performs specific tasks to help me manage my disability. She is not just a dog. She has medical equipment that costs $25,000 and is protected under federal law. We didn't know about any disability, Mom said, her voice smaller now, but still defensive. Because I never told you. Because I managed it privately, with Luna's help, without burdening you with my problems. But you decided you knew better than my doctors, better than federal law, better than me. We made a mistake, she whispered. Yes, you did. A very expensive mistake that's going to cost you everything I've been paying for. That afternoon, they showed up at my apartment. I watched through the window as they sat in their car for several minutes, heavily arguing about strategy, about what to say to fix this. When they finally came to the door, Mom's eyes were red and swollen from crying. We need to talk, she said. I let them in, but didn't offer coffee or ask them to sit. Lona positioned herself between me and them, not aggressively but protectively, the way she had been trained to create space when she sensed my stress levels rising. We're sorry, Dad said immediately. We didn't understand about Luna being a service dog. Her name is Luna. Right, Luna? We didn't understand about her being medical equipment. What did you understand? I asked. They exchanged glances. Mom spoke first, her voice careful and measured. We thought you were just spoiling her, spending too much money on an expensive pet when family needed help with basic necessities. So you took her. We thought you'd understand once you had time to think about it, Dad added. Family should come first. Blood is thicker than water. Family, I repeated. When did you decide I lost family? That's not fair, Mom protested. Isn't he it? You made a decision about my property without consulting me. You gave away something that belonged to me because you decided it wasn't important. When did family start? Meaning you get to make unilateral decisions about my life? Trevor appeared in the doorway behind them. Apparently, this was supposed to be an intervention. Look, he said, stepping inside uninvited. Everybody made mistakes here, but cutting off Mom and Dad completely is just cruel. They raised you, their family. I'm not being cruel. I'm protecting myself. From what? Your own family? I gestured to Luna, who was still monitoring the situation carefully, reading the tension in the room and my elevated stress levels. From people who think my medical equipment is disposable. From people who take my things without asking because they think they know what's best for me. From people who think my money is their money. But my decisions don't matter. It's not like that, Mom said, tears starting again. Then explain how it is she couldn't. None of them could articulate a version of events that didn't involve them taking my property and giving it away without permission. We need the money back, Dad said, finally abandoning pretense. The mortgage, the utilities, the insurance premiums. We can't afford any of it without your help. Then you should have thought of that before you gave away Luna. We said we were sorry. What more do you want? I want you to understand that sorry doesn't fix broken trust. Sorry doesn't change the fact that you took something that belonged to me. Sorry doesn't mean I can trust you not to do it again. The next time you decide something in my life isn't important enough. Trevor stepped forward, his face reeking with anger and frustration. You're really going to let them lose their house over a dog? I'm protecting myself from people who steal from me, I said. Whether you call her a dog or medical equipment or a purple elephant, she belonged to me. And you took her. We gave her back. After I threatened legal action. After I had to prove she was a service dog. After I spent 6 hours tracking down my own property and providing documentation to get her released. Lona pressed against my leg, sensing my rising stress levels. I took a deep breath, letting her presence ground me the way she had been trained to do. Hey Race, what's going to happen? I said, my voice calm and final. You're going to figure out how to pay your own bills. You're going to respect my property and my decisions. And you're going to understand that I am not your personal bank account to be accessed whenever you decide my priorities are wrong. And if we can't, Mom asked through her tears. Then you'll face the consequences of your choices, just like I've been facing the consequences of trusting you. They left after that, but not before Trevor tried one more guilt trip about family loyalty, abandoning the people who raised me. I closed the door on his speech and engaged both deadbolts. The weeks that followed were chaotic for them, peaceful for me. Phone calls I didn't answer, text messages I deleted without reading, voicemails full of increasingly desperate pleas for help, for understanding, for just one more chance. I blocked all their numbers. The house went into foreclosure proceedings within 6 weeks. Dad medication costs forced him to choose between pills and groceries. Mom's car broke down and stayed broken because they couldn't afford repairs. Trevor moved back in with them, 3 adults crammed into a failing household, all of them learning what life actually costs when someone else isn't subsidizing it. I heard about their situation through my Aunt Carol, who called to lecture me about family responsibility and Christian forgiveness. "They're your parents," she said, her voice heavy with judgment. "You can't just abandon them like this." "They abandoned me first," I replied. "They just didn't call it that. They made one mistake. They stole my medical equipment," I interrupted. "They took something that helps me manage a disability and gave it away to save money on dog food." Would you be having this conversation if they pawned someone's wheelchair? 6 months later, I got a call from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. "This is Attorney David Wash," the voice said. "I represent your parents in their bankruptcy proceedings." "Congratulations, Mr. Henderson. Your parents are facing complete financial ruin. They're going to lose everything they own." "I'm aware. They've asked me to contact you about a possible family settlement, some kind of arrangement that might help them avoid complete bankruptcy." I was quiet for a moment, watching Lona sleep peacefully in her bed beside my desk, content, safe, exactly where she belonged. "Mr. Wash," I said finally, "my parents gave away my service dog to save $50 a month on dog food. They thought my medical equipment was disposable property they could redistribute." Does that sound like people who understand the concept of family arrangements? I understand there was a misunderstanding about the dog. There was no misunderstanding. There was theft, and now there are consequences. I hung up and blocked that number. 2. A year later, I saw Mom at the grocery store. She was using food stamps, her cart filled with generic brands and manager special markdowns. She saw me, too, her face cycling through shame, anger, and something that might have been hope. She approached slowly, like someone approaching an unpredictable animal. "How are you doing?" she asked quietly. "I'm well. Luna's well too." She flinched visibly at Luna's name. "I heard you bought a house." "I did. Big yard. Quiet neighborhood. Luna loves having space to run." "That's good. That's really good." We stood there in awkward silence, other shoppers moving around us, the weight of everything unsaid hanging between us like a physical presence. "I want you to know," she said finally, "that we understand now about Luna. About what she really means to you." "Do you?" "We were wrong. We made a terrible mistake." I nodded. "Yes, you did. Is there any way? Can we fix this somehow?" I looked at her, really looked. The woman who'd raised me, taught me to ride a bike, helped with homework, bandage, scraped knees. She was also the woman who'd given away my service dog to save money on pet food. "I don't know," I said. "Honestly, trust isn't something you can just fix with an apology. But we could try. If we really understood now." "You could try," I said. "But trying would mean understanding that Luna isn't negotiable, that my boundaries aren't suggestions, that my disability is real and my needs matter even if you can't see them." She nodded eagerly. "We understand that now. We really do." "Do you? Because a year ago you thought I was being dramatic about just a dog. What's actually changed, besides your financial situation?" She was quiet for a long time, processing the question. "Finally, living without you changed things. Seeing what it really costs to handle everything ourselves." "And Luna?" "Luna is. She's important to you. More important than we understood." "She's not important to me." I corrected gently. "She's necessary for me. There's a difference." I left her there, in the cereal aisle, still processing that distinction. When I got home, Elena was waiting by the door, tail wagging, ready for our evening walk. I clipped her leash to her collar. We headed out into the fading golden light. 2 blocks from the house, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number, a photo of a German Shepherd mix in a shelter cage, along with a message. "Saw this guy at the pound today. Thought you might want to give him a home too." It was from Trevor, his first attempt at contact in over a year, and he was suggesting I adopt another dog, as if one service dog was interchangeable with any random shelter animal. As if he still fundamentally didn't understand what Luna actually was, or why she mattered. I deleted the message without responding and kept walking. Some people never learn, never change, never grow. But that was their limitation now. Not my problem. Luna looked up at me, sensing my brief spike of irritation, then wagged her tail and returned to her investigation of interesting scents along the sidewalk, content in her work, secure in her home, exactly where she belonged. And for the first time in years, I was exactly where I belonged.